Coming up today, no endorsement. Korea's rival parties fail to approve a set of bills meant to boost the economy and better cope with possible terror attacks. A Labour union leader who's been holed up in a Buddhist temple in Seoul for weeks to evade arrest for inciting violence at anti-government protests has voluntarily given himself in. Plus, faced with lingering uncertainties at home and abroad, Korea's central bank holds its key rate steady at a record low of 1.5% for the sixth straight month. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Thursday, the 10th of December. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this lunchtime, the National Assembly's regular session finished with a whimper rather than a bang on Wednesday evening as the nation's rival parties were unable to agree on what to do with a handful of crucial economy and security-related bills. Our National Assembly correspondent, Ji Myung-gil, starts us off.
The last regular session of the 19th National Assembly has come to an end. Amid President Park Geun-hye's continued orders to pass contentious bills, rival parties failed to even pass bills that they had previously agreed upon last week.
The agreements that we previously made were not just agreements between the two parties, but they were a promise made to our people.
Both sides of the aisle agreed to pass a bill to promote Korea's service industry, a bill on North Korea's human rights issues, and an anti-terrorism bill for the public safety backed by the ruling Saenuri Party.
The only thing on the president's mind was passing the service sector bill and pressuring us.
The main opposition MPAD is against the Service Promotion Act until a part related to the medical industry is removed due to concerns it could lead to the privatization of the health sector. However, the same fate awaited the opposition bloc's bill to facilitate cooperation between conglomerates and small and medium-sized companies, which failed to earn bipartisan support. As lawmakers need to continue negotiations over crucial bills, the ruling bloc called for opening an extraordinary session on Thursday. But it is unclear whether the opposition camp will decide to participate in the extra session. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Now, staying with domestic political news, and Korea's rival parties will make another attempt today to try and reach an agreement on redrawing electoral districts ahead of next year's general elections. The chairman and floor leaders of the ruling Saenuri and main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy have agreed to hold discussions to resolve their differences over a number of contentious issues, such as the rules to elect proportional representatives. The move comes as the MPAD call for the meeting on Wednesday to settle the matter by December 15th, a key date as it's when the preliminary candidate registration for the April general election gets underway. Now, leadership from both parties is expected to resume talks focusing on ways to reduce the number of lawmakers elected by proportional representation. Now to the latest on the controversial standoff between police and the chief of Korea's second largest Labour union, Sang Gon, who has been wanted by police for months on charges of orchestrating violent anti-government protests, held a press conference this morning, speaking at Jogesa Temple, where he's taken refuge for 25 days. Han called on the government to end all of its labour reform plans and listen to the public, saying that he and the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions will fight until President Park Geun-hye's labour reform drive can be stopped. Han said the proposed reforms will only dampen the hopes of irregular workers who are struggling to secure permanent jobs. Han was arrested immediately following the event and taken to the nearest police station for questioning. The union has warned it will carry out a general strike starting next Wednesday to protest the government's labour reform plans. Korea's central bank has held its key rate steady at 1.5%, continuing its wait-and-see approach. The decision was widely expected as the economy is facing a number of obstacles from both in and outside of Korea. Our Hwang Jie has this report.
In its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday, the Bank of Korea decided to stand pat on its record low key interest rate of 1.5% for a sixth straight month. The central bank's move this month comes right before the U.S. Federal Reserve's meeting next week, where policymakers are expected to raise the interest rate for the first time in almost a decade. The possibility of a U.S. rate hike is prompting concerns about massive capital outflows from emerging economies, and Korea is no exception. But the nation's central bank has been seeking to differentiate Korea from other emerging markets, saying it's confident about the fundamentals like its massive current account surplus and foreign reserves. Still, the economy faces uncertainties from slowing global demand, especially from China, that's hitting local exporters hard. Korea's outbound shipments have dropped every month this year. The fragile recovery momentum, coupled with snowballing household debt at home, is also a concern. Korea's third quarter growth was better than expected, expanding 1.3%, but the rise was mainly fueled by temporary factors like government spending. Experts say low global oil prices could further darken Korea's growth prospects for next year, and that it will be difficult for Korea to continue to grow at the pace seen in the third quarter. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, Korea is looking to boost food exports to China once the Korea-China Free Trade Agreement kicks in later this month. At the 5th export conference hosted by the nation's relevant ministries and the Chinese embassy on Thursday, 90 Korean food companies and 33 buyers from China held face-to-face talks. According to those who took part, Chinese buyers were highly interested in the Korean firm's red ginseng, seaweed, vitamins and snacks. Korea plans to hold regular export conferences with Chinese buyers in order to meet their rising demand for safe and high-quality food products. The Korea-China FTA is scheduled to take effect from December 20th. Hyundai Heavy Industries has announced plans to sell stocks worth over $110 million to improve its financial situation. The shares will be sold through block deals after the closing of trading hours on Thursday. According to Hyundai officials, the company is selling off unnecessary assets to streamline its business structure. In September, Hyundai Heavy Industries sold its Hyundai Motor shares worth over $425 million to secure more cash amid the industry slowdown. Now, a decline in foreign direct investment in Korea has caused the country to lose thousands of jobs every year over the past 10 years or so. Shin Se-min explains more about why the jobs are disappearing and what can be done to get them back.
Korea is losing 130,000 jobs every year as a direct result of falling foreign direct investment in the country. In its latest report, the Korea Economic Research Institute says cumulative job losses due to this factor stands at 927,000 since 2001. Over the past 13 years, up to 2014, that's an annual average of 71,000 jobs Korea could have, but isn't getting. And it's a vicious cycle. Fewer jobs means lower production. Figures show tumbling FDI has cost Korea $122 billion since 2001. So the average loss in production per year between 2001 and 2014 was nearly $9.5 billion. Making matters worse is Korea's already tepid employment market, which is hampering government efforts to attain economic growth of 3% this year. But according to the report, the worrying fall in production is mostly down to slumping foreign direct investment. Inbound foreign capital has been contracting since the early 2000s. FDI in Korea is less than half the amount Korean firms invest outside of Korea. Korea's industry ministry says FDI in Korea amounted to some $13 billion in the first 3 quarters of this year, down 10.5% on year. Foreign investment in Korea topped $15 billion in 1999, but only stood at $14 billion in 2013. Experts say FDI is being held back by Korea's sluggish investment climate and high business expenses. They advise the government to do more to ensure there is a better balance between the amount of foreign investment into Korea and the amount Korean firms invest in overseas markets. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
North Korea appears to be nearing completion of an upgrade on its main rocket launch site in northwestern North Korea. That's according to the US website 38 North, which has been monitoring the Sohae satellite launching station in Tongchang-ri. Commercial satellite imagery from October and November suggests construction of new propellant bunkers at the launch pad is almost done. The site says the activity indicates this may be the end of what is likely a 3-year program to upgrade the site, which could mean Pyongyang is ready to conduct space launches of larger rockets by early next year. The head of the FBI has revealed that the suspects in the recent mass shooting in Southern California were radicalized even before they became engaged. James Comey told the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee on Wednesday local time that Saeed Razwan Farouk and his wife Tashfeen Malik had been talking about jihad and martyrdom in online conversations dating all the way back to 2013. He also said Malik held extremist views before she arrived in the U.S. last year. The disclosure means the U.S. government's vetting process had apparently failed to detect Malik's radicalization. The FBI chief also said that investigators did not know yet whether their online courtship was arranged by a terror group or developed naturally on its own. 14 people were killed in the shooting at a social services center in San Bernardino on December 2nd. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has become just the 4th woman since 1927 to be named Time magazine's Person of the Year. Speaking on a US news network on Wednesday, Time's editor-in-chief, Nancy Gibbs, said Merkel had helped manage the economic collapse in Greece, been at the forefront of handling Europe's massive refugee influx and coping well with the recent terror attacks in Europe. Leader of the Islamic State group, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, made it to Time's #2 spot this year, with Gibbs saying he poses a significant and dangerous challenge to the world. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump was the 3rd runner-up. Others on this year's shortlist were Russian President Vladimir Putin and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. And staying with that man there, Donald Trump, who is, of course, the Republican frontrunner and quarter of controversy for his extreme remarks about Muslims, is ensuring the spotlight stays firmly on him, this time by warning that he'll mount an independent bid for president if need be. Son Jung-in has more.
Despite widespread criticism over inflammatory remarks that have threatened his standing in the polls, U.S. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has made it clear that he has no intention of dropping out of the race. In a tweet, he cited a USA Today poll that suggests 68% of his supporters would still vote for him even if he left the Republican Party and ran as independent. Trump, who is the current Republican frontrunner, has drawn sharp criticism from a growing number of leaders at home and abroad for his call for all Muslims to be banned from entering the country. All of the leading Democratic candidates, along with some Republicans, have joined the leaders of France and the UK in denouncing Trump. In New York City, about 100 political and religious leaders gathered at City Hall to condemn his proposal.
There is nothing left to say about Donald Trump except that he is a disgusting, racist demagogue who has no business running for president, period.
Trump's response to the stinging criticism from within his own party has raised the possibility that he could run as an independent in next year's election if he doesn't continue, in his words, to get proper treatment. The prospect has party officials concerned, as the move could steer a large block of voters away from the party and give Democrats a winning advantage. Meanwhile, over in UK, an online petition calling for the government to bar Trump from entry gathered over 300,000 signatures, forcing the parliament to at least consider the move in open debate. Trump has also drawn outrage in Europe with remarks claiming that parts of Paris and London are so radicalized that even the police refuse to go there. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Now, we have another worrying report about global warming, which is timely considering the Paris Climate Conference, which is happening as we speak. Glaciers on Mount Everest have shrunk by more than a quarter over the past 40 years due to climate change. This is according to a joint report released by the Chinese Academy of Sciences in conjunction with the local university and conservation centre. It says the glaciers have been reduced by 28% compared to measurements taken in the 1970s. The glacial area on the south slope of the world's tallest mountain has decreased by a massive 26% since the 1980s. The shrinking glaciers have resulted in the swelling of many glacial lakes. Well, those are stories we've been following on this Thursday lunchtime here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out either our website, arirang.com/news. You can also download our smartphone application. All you have to do is search for Arirang TV in all the usual places. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.